Hey there. Ferus, can you record or do you want me to do it?
Yep, I can do it. Thanks. I was
You can
just
do it?
wanted
Okay,
to
cool.
give some time. Yeah. All right. I think we can start. Hello and welcome everyone. Today is 9th of December and this is Metal3 community meeting. Just a reminder that this meeting is recorded and will be later posted to the Metal3 YouTube channel. If you have any items that you want to discuss with the community today, then please go ahead and add it to the agenda. Also, please add your name in the attendees list. So I will also share the link to the Google Doc on the chat. Yep. All right, as usual, to start with, if there is someone new on the call or didn't have a chance previously to introduce themselves, then please give us a brief intro about yourself, and meanwhile, I will mute my microphone.
Hi, this is Anish. So I work for the Metamorph plugin. So basically, we try to write as a professional for Metal3 for the redfish capability.
Great, thank you, and welcome to the Metal3. It's always nice to see more and more people joining. Is there someone else?
Hi, this is Manoj. I work with Ericsson. I'm working with Anish on a proposal for retrofit integration into PMO.
Okay, great, and welcome to the Metal3.
Thank you.
Is there someone else new or still would like to introduce himself? Okay, I take it as a no. So then I see we can just start the agenda. The first item in our agenda is from Digambar, proposal for the provisioner mechanism in Metal3. Digambar?
Okay, can you stop sharing? I'll share my screen.
Sure. Yeah, can you try now?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Are you able to see my screen? The document?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Today, so myself talking about multi-provisioner plugin mechanism, why we need that in Metal3 and Metamorph project. Like we have Anish and Manoj with us, the core member of Metamorph provisioner. So idea here is actually we came with the proposal because at some of the goals which we feel that we need for some of the issues we need to tackle, and we need that it will be good to have a provisioner which is in house and to solve some of the cases so that it will be helpful for us, and it's going to be Metal3 even more. So we observed some issues and goals are ease of provisioning, management of parameters for us over WAN, introduction of in-house redfish provisioner, and provisioner should help for detecting cause of failures for errored host, introduce multi-provisioner mechanism in Metal3, which will help add support for many VM provisioners in the future, and there will not be any impact on the ironic. Rather, it will provide great ability to resolve many more issues for VMs using Metal3. So primary stories are like this, uh, fast provisioning mechanism, DSCP. Some of the use cases we tried that at the edge location where DSCP and PXE related, we faced a lot of issues, and from airship side. And there is one of the critical need that how we can detect and validate errors. Where if there is a node is in failed state, and there is pool of resources at the edge location, and we need a quick mechanism to detect the errors so that user will get to know that what is going wrong or what has gone wrong. And that's where some of the issues we faced, and that is one of the great extent we can see that we should go and implement such stuff so that it will be more handy for users from Metal3 itself. And Metal3 is going to be a CNC project, and if we have such kind of mechanism, multi-provisioning mechanism, so that Ironic does, and if some of the use cases which is not supported by Ironic, and how we can add those ability in Metal3, which will be helpful for us to quickly solve those issues. And this is the need. We need a in-house provisioner. And actually, there is one issue is onboarding a node at edge where PXE doesn't float over a WAN installation support. That is one of the major issue we faced with at the edge using a Metal3 Ironic base. So idea here is a multi-provisioner mechanism we need to introduce, because I think there are a couple of things like we discussed here with the stories and goals, and that's need we need that. And currently we tried with the Metamorph, and I'll come to Metamorph in detail later, but I'll explain why we need a multi-provisioner. But currently, if I want to onboard the provisioner support in Metal3, then there is a tight coupling of Ironic implementation, and we need a couple of changes there in the BMO itself. And for that, the idea is to use Ironic as a default plugin, but along with that, how we can add another plugin which will help us do more job along with Ironic. That will be the idea. So there won't. So that's the reason we are asking that can we have a multi-provisioner support and in plugin mechanism in BMO itself, so that we will have a more of such provisioners coming in the future. And it will be on factory or anything. We can do that by discussing with the community. And I have put my thoughts on this docs. Anyway, I'll put this on Google Doc and share with you. But entire implementation I have listed here, where we need changes and why we need changes. And there are one of the things we need that currently there are storage network and acceleration technologies coming up like smart switch and GPU, TPU, and they have their own libraries. So that anyway we have to introduce such kind of support in Metal3, because those libraries are actually independent, and we have to add support for that in the future. So these are some of the different accelerators we need to think going ahead. And that's the reason having a multi-provisioner mechanism or plugin mechanism, which will help us extend our use cases for different tackling a different types of problems in the future. Metamorph, we are introducing Metamorph as a separate provisioner under Metal3 community. It's a bare metal provisioner used only specific. We are only talking about a Redfish APIs, not it's so dedicated for Redfish API based on virtual media stuff. And it's in development phase, and Anish and Manoj has developed some part, already developed some part and demoed it. They have a POC in this, but actually we want to collaborate that with the Metal3 community and used for great extent going ahead. Changing the existing provider, Ironic provisioner will not have any impact. Only by introducing a new plugin, we have to make some changes. And based on that, those changes will have to put and change those files, and some calls will change, but existing implementation, entire implementation won't be changing. That's for sure. And absolutely, some of the dependencies, and we will have to structure it out properly, and testing is needed. Some of the modify dev is free, because we'll have to add support for this and test it entirely, so that both things will work properly at the time of installation. And I'm coming to error detection mechanism here. This is error detection mechanism. This is one of the huge requirement, I can say, because airship community has. How we can detect the failures, how we can detect the cause of failures behind the any failed host or errored host. So and I think Doug knows that I and Doug presented one proposal to Ironic community. Can we introduce some of the things in Ironic that if introspection is failed, how we can detect error, and can you put some error that user will get to know that host is in error state, and what kind of error state it is in, what is the cause of failure behind this. And Ironic community, I think that time reluctant to get in because of other priorities. And now airship community needs that immediately. And I think we feel that the Metamorph is another way, because it's already in development phase, and we can introduce one mechanism with the error states which we have in Metal3 and replicate those APIs in Metamorph and get this going. So there is efforts involved, but we can take that part. And that is certainly there, but these are the errors we want to introduce and get this done as early as possible. And that is the we can do it that Metamorph using the Redfish calls. So so high level diagram is this: BMH, plugin manager, Ironic, and Metamorph. Sequence diagram, here is the BMH, BM controller, provisioner, Metamorph driver, and here is the Ironic driver and Metamorph, like this. We can think over this. We can go through this again. I request everyone. Once I upload it, and in the error detection, this is how I think that Metamorph is already there. We need to introduce error state APIs, and then there are some of the error state controllers, which anyway talking to Redfish, and then there are some extraction of those API and request what happens here and get back to the user. And these are the risk and iteration and work items will be there. This is one of the proposal we came up with. I'd like to hear more from you people. That's it from my side.
Great, thank you very much, Digambar. Does someone have like questions or comments or any feedbacks, like early feedbacks on this proposal?
Hi, Andrea speaking. Yes, I have a question on to Digambar. What would be the benefit of the plugin manager in respect to the provisioner factory that is already defined? Can you please clarify this point?
Actually,
yeah.
So idea here is this is one of the concept we want to introduce. It's a factual based approach, but we want to support a multiple provisioner in this way. And I feel that if we introduce this mechanism, we can certainly help introduce or use multiple plugins in Metal3. That's the intention behind introducing such kind of things.
Sorry, would you mind detailing a bit more why just adding an additional provisioner in the current infrastructure, like in the current way it's done right now? Because Ironic is already a provisioner and we can add already some on the side. Like what would be the difference with this plugin versus what we have now with this factory?
Exactly. Like I explained, there are a couple of things we tried over WAN and things are not working. Okay, and we are thinking that we are not actually existing Ironic plugin will be there. That is become a de facto kind of thing. We know that, but actually detecting a API, detecting the actual errors and support for over WAN means actually Edge Pixie doesn't float over WAN installation support. I think these kind of cases where actually we feel that current mechanism and current Ironic API states are not working. And actually we tried that deployment. I think Manoj and Anish, I think they can explain you better way here.
Sorry, that was not my question actually. I understand that you have some things that you're not happy with in Ironic and you want an alternative. My question is rather, there is already a mechanism in Ironic to support multiple provisioners, right? Why is adding an additional provisioner in that mechanism not not sufficient? Why do you need this additional new like plugin manager, let's say plugin infrastructure and plugin manager, compared to what we currently have with the provisioners factories?
Okay, so ironic, because I think Airship and now Airship 2.0 and Metal Cube is also become a CNC project now, and Airship 2.0 is also Kubernetes native way we are developing, and that's the feel that everything we are going with the native way, Kubernetes native way, and we feel that instead of writing that entire mechanism or these kind of stuff in a ironic, instead of can we have some kind of module here in Metal Cube that will be handy and easy to implement, because already Metamorph is already developed at some level. And so already we had done one kind of integration with BMO and CapM3. And I think we feel that if you can introduce directly here, then it will be less effort instead of introducing that into Ironic and re-implement stuff.
I was maybe not clear enough. I meant that there would be Ironic on one side, yes, but then there could be a Metamorph provisioner already in BMO as it is now, right? Like you could already create a provisioner, an additional one on the side of Ironic. So then you could choose, am I using Metamorph or am I using like Ironic, right? This is already kind of like in place. This mechanism exists in BMO. Of course, right now there's only Ironic implemented. Well, there is also a fake one on the side. But so why would you need this plugin approach instead of just putting?
If that's there, then I can certainly take a look at it. Actually, I feel that it's not there, and I explored it, but we can then plug in this part in there with that fake, and we'll do detailed study on that. There is no intention that we are going to replace everything, because we thought that if it's not there, and I think I'm sorry for that, because I thought I've gone through it. I feel that it's only ironic. That's the reason I introduced this.
This Manoj, just an additional note on what was mentioned. Yes, the provisioner is there, the factory provisioner is there, and we too with Metamorph we had used the provisioner, integrated, added an additional Redfish provisioner and got it working. But we and Anish found it. Our comments were that the current implementation is tightly coupled with Ironic. So we would think like maybe that could be abstracted to become a generic provision kind of thing. So that was what the intent I think Digambar was trying to put in. Maybe we need a rewording and some kind of changes. Maybe we could do that. But the main idea what he was trying to put in was maybe pulling out some of the Ironic bound mechanisms. Like for example, the environment variables are all tightly coupled with Ironic currently. Maybe pulling it out and other such things could be done. That's what could be the intent.
Doug, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. When you say multiple provisioners, do you mean that I will be able to deploy Metal Cubed and at that point choose a provisioner? Or do you mean that I would have all of them available and somehow the user would specify on the host which one to use, or that it would be detected automatically or something like that? How would that part work?
I feel that we should have at the time of installation we should not specify, because at the time of deployment, let's say I want to use both Metamorph and Ironic, user can go ahead and deploy anything, and at the time of BMH object we should have that ability. People want to use a Metamorph or something, because that way we can utilize the Ironic capabilities more and some of the Metamorph functionalities which we doesn't found in Ironic. And if someone wants to use Metamorph only, then we can use Metamorph, because like Mail explained that we have that functionality, and with Manoj and we figured that out, some of the changes we need. So I think we can go with
We cannot hear you, Digambar.
Make the choice at the time that you install Metal Cubed. would I choose when I'm provisioning the host which provisioner to use, or would the system do that, or would they be mixed and different aspects of provisioning be done by different tools?
It will be good.
Walk me through what happens when I actually provision a host. Is there a choice and that's final for that host, or is it dynamic and happening, like different calls are happening as needed?
Okay, so currently, I feel that it will be good once one of the hosts is picked by Metamorph. For next couple of phases, we feel that if that object Ironic is handling one host, then it should be that host will be controlled by Ironic entire lifecycle management. If one of the hosts is all handled by Metamorph, that should be handled by Metamorph only. But
okay.
The mix approach, I need to rethink. I think you can help me in that. I think we can, if possible, we can bring more clarity on that.
Okay, I was trying to steer you away from that, so just don't do that. Okay, so choosing per host, that makes sense. I can see how that could be made to work. I would be interested to hear which specific things you need that Ironic doesn't do. We are doing provisioning with Ironic over long connections without Pixie using virtual media successfully. If Metamorph is doing something different or deploying in a different way than Ironic, I'd be interested to hear what it's doing, how that works. I also wonder if the host API is the right place to put this, whether it would make, like if Metamorph does all of the things that Ironic does and fulfills that host API, then we could build a different controller that worked based on Metamorph, rather than plugging in at the provisioner. But if it doesn't do all of the same things and doesn't provide that, full API, like doing all of the inspection and all of that stuff, then maybe the thing to do is to think about having a different machine API implementation that drove a different Metamorph-based API for provisioning hosts. And consider it that way. And I don't have any specific reason why that would or would not be better in your case, because I don't have enough detail about, maybe when you share this doc, I'll be able to comment more specifically, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, like in the Ironic world, dynamic plugins in Python code, that's really simple. In the Kubernetes world, it seems much more common to replace the whole controller or something, or have a different API object, rather than making choices like that in code. That's the cluster API model, right? Is we have a different controller.
Yeah.
That's running. And so I'm wondering if that's a better solution here, which is not to say that we wouldn't want to host some of this code as part of Metal3 as well, just that maybe the place you've identified to plug it in is not ideal. Especially since, like you were saying, a lot of what we have right now is really tied much more tightly than we hoped it would have been to Ironic when we started building it. So.
We could even think in the same way, like apply this exact same concept as Cluster API does, in the way that we would have a bare metal host that would have this kind of infrastructure reference to a bare metal host Ironic or bare metal host Metamorph that would contain just the bits that are specific for that provisioner, and then have the information like coming back to the actual bare metal host if we don't want to change too much the API itself.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure what would need to change. We tried to keep all the Ironic stuff out of the actual API.
Yeah, so that's actually what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just more if Metamorph brings
what.
Yeah, so my idea would be that you would have the bare metal host the same way that you have a machine cluster API. And then Metamorph or Ironic would have their own representation of the object, like a bare metal host Ironic or bare metal host Metamorph, or however you call it. That would be the equivalent of Metal3 machine or GCP machine or something like this, So that
Yeah.
if Metamorph needs something specific in the API that Ironic does not need, then it would go in the object that is specifically managed by the Metamorph controller, right?
Sure.
Metamorph.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that will be ideal.
I mean, we had to do that with machines because all of the clouds are so completely different, right? But we tried really hard not to put anything Ironic specific in the current API. So it would be interesting to see if we could get away with using the host and just having a different controller. And maybe they, each controller decides whether or not it manages a host based on a type field or something like that, but not having that happen as a choice in the Go code, but have it happen by having different controllers running.
Okay.
I think having using different models, like one specifically, well, even if we say that, yeah, there shouldn't be any Ironic specific, but we can't, I think that there won't be any additional provisioner specific things, right, coming up
Possibly,
in the future.
Yeah.
So maybe splitting the model would be better with that regard, that it would allow us to evolve better individually on the different provisioners in that case.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's definitely worth exploring. So I look forward to getting this document so that I can read through it in more detail.
Yeah. So I'll create a issue in Metal3 and upload under it, and also put it here in the same Google Doc. Okay.
Yeah, please don't create directly a Metal3 docs pull request, but put it in in a Google Docs. That's
issue.
Good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there still someone that would like to add something on top of this? All right. Then
sorry, just a last comment that it would actually be the really good timing to do that if we start also talking about the bare metal host API v2, or well, okay, like v1 alpha 2, let's say rather, because that would fit. It would be exactly very well fitting in terms of if we redesign the whole bare metal host API to take this into consideration when we do so.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you can comment your stuff on the document, and we can explore that part. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you, Digambar.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah,
All right.
Bye.
Let's move on to the next item. It's from Ashu, proposal submitted for the hardware classification controller, new parameters, link of the proposal, or PR, sorry. Ashu?
Yeah, so good morning, community. So I have submitted this proposal, and I got the review comments from Doug also. I have saw that review comments, and that is a very good approach that Doug said, that you can divide that proposal into two parts, means firmware and system vendor, and disk and CPU architecture. So we will do that, Doug. And the thing we want to discuss here is the two, means get the disk type, means it is SSD, HDD, or NVMe, anything. So we done some investigations on that, and we found that using the HCTL and the rotational parameter, we can easily recognize that which disk type it is. So that's what we put into the proposal for the disk. So we just want to know your thoughts on this thing.
Is there someone that has reviewed this?
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, so my concern with being specific about the disk type was that it's very hardware specific. I mean, even the examples here in the doc are still saying that they work for Dell hardware, that if you have this specific HCTL and rotational is set, then you know whether or not it's you know, hard drive or solid state drive. And I just don't think that's portable. So I feel like what we need to do is expose the flags for rotational and the HCTL values and whatever else, you know, whatever other parameters that there are. And then somebody could write a rule that said that if the HCTL matches a certain pattern and the rotational flag is set a certain way, then that means it is this type. But that would be a user doing that based on their own hardware, rather than us claiming to know about all hardware everywhere. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I follow you there.
Yeah, so if you could scroll down to show lines 93 through 102. The proposal is to add a type field so that it would say there has to be a solid state device in the host or something like that. Or say the perk RAID example, right? And so the idea is that one of the types would be perk RAID, right? And then we would, inside the classifier, look for certain values to determine the type of the disk, and then return true or false based on whether or not it's a perk RAID. And I'm saying that that is far too vendor and device specific for us to encode in Go, but that we could expose a rule that says if your HCTL pattern matches some string or some set of numbers or whatever the right thing to do is, then a user could define a classification resource that had the rule in it that would identify hosts that had perk RAID devices on them.
Gotcha.
And that's much more portable because it would allow the user. And we could even document some of this stuff, right? We could say, well, we've noticed in Dell hardware that if you do this, you'll find perk RAID devices. But if we put it in the Go code, then what are we going to do for all the other hardware vendors? And, you know, yeah.
So in essence, what you're saying, don't hard code this into the rules. Go ahead and provide this for matching with the CR.
Right. Expose the values that we would have hard-coded the checks against.
Gotcha.
In some way, yeah. And if it means like this line there, 95 has values like 0:n:0:0. If we need to define a way to have a rule that would match that, where you don't care what n is, but you know it's not necessarily 0 or something, like we might need to be creative in how we express the HCTL value rule. But let's not encode the rule itself.
Okay.
The other point about disks and the NIC thing, the next section also had the same problem, is that it changes the type of the existing field from one thing to a list of things. And that's a non-significant change in the API in order to maintain any kind of backwards compatibility. And if we don't care about the backwards compatibility, then maybe that's okay. But I think it would be better if we added new fields rather than trying to change the existing field. So NICs is listed. That example is actually the inspection data, not the, so if you scroll down to, where is it in here? The actual example of the, okay, NIC wasn't a list, I'm sorry. So line 204 had the example rule set. NIC was not a list, but on line 197, disk was turning into a list, and that needs to be a new field rather than reusing the same name, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So in case of PCI bus, Doug, I think we need those fields 0 should be consistent, right? You said that it should be defined, but should be consistent for RAID and specific operations, right?
Well, this my expertise on SCSI bus settings is not very current, but I thought that had to do with the position of the device in the hardware. So in the old days, if you moved a thing around and put it in a different place, it might end up with a different ID.
Okay, so this was actually the pattern that we had observed consistently on the Dell hardware specifically to be.
Right. So if you've only looked at certain Dell hardware, maybe Dell is consistent across their entire line of hardware, but HP doesn't do it this way, and HP's values are something completely different, right? And you know, we're not just trying to make it easier to provision to Dell, we're trying to make it easier to provision to all bare metal.
So, yeah, actually, let me ask JT. I think JT is from Dell. JT, if things in the future firmware updated, so this SCSI bus, this alphabets and numbers will be changing or not? And if it changes, we'll have to mention the firmware name also as a mandatory.
Yeah, it should not change within Dell. I mean, this CTL definition is known definition.
Okay.
So hopefully that doesn't change. Now, I can't speak for HP or, you know, the other vendors, Hitachi or whoever, you know, might be doing something with their own systems, Intel. But as far as Dell goes, this is a pattern. As far as our SU's introspection went in, you know, the examples, this is a pattern that has been following true so far. And we'll have to go back to the engineering teams at the other, you know, their disk team and see if they have any other thoughts on this. But for right now, this is what we found. And I understand where our team's trying to go. And I understand Doug's point that, yeah, we can't be tying it, hard coding this in. We need to be able to use the CR to do a match. And that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
in that case.
And that's probably a pattern we should follow for, right. We should probably use that same pattern for the NICs, for the, you know, all the different hardware types that we might need going forward.
Right. The idea would be to expose a way to match against the values that are discoverable,
right,
so that someone who understands the hardware can write rules that are specific to their hardware.
Yep.
But not have us do that. Yeah. And like I said, we can certainly document this stuff to make it easy to share and that kind of thing, right? Like we can give examples of here's how you would discover a server that had a particular kind of disk in a particular place or whatever. Right. And I'd be happy to have this complex kinds of examples in our documentation, but just not in the code.
Okay. So in this case, I see that vendor name should be make it as a compulsory to detect such kind of stuff, because it is becoming a vendor dependent, right?
Well, vendor is not always, when you go to inspect this disk, you won't always find vendor Dell. You may find vendor Intel or vendor some other. So again, it's going to have to be a match type thing. The vendor ID is not always what you expect it to be.
Disk vendors could be different ones. So you have Samsung in case of SSDs, maybe ATA, like SATA disk you have in case of hard disk. So those are the common ones, I guess. So like those are universal. So they might follow the pattern.
They might follow the pattern, or they might provide hints. And that's where Doug's examples go to, you know. We can provide examples of how a vendor might match. That might be possible.
Yeah, and I would also caution against tying any of the fields together unless they're absolutely required. Because, you know, if I've got a bunch of uniform hardware and the only difference is maybe the type of NIC in it or something like that, then I shouldn't have to specify everything in order to have a rule that matches on the one unique characteristic I actually care about.
Okay. And JT, is it okay to publish the PCI bus of all these things, all the internal SATA disk or other vendors in the mapping?
well, I can't speak for other vendors, but this is public knowledge for Dell hardware for sure. So yes, this would be publishable.
Yeah, I mean, if it exists in Dell documentation, I'd love to just link to it and not reproduce. Yeah. That's less for us to have to maintain ourselves. But I would expect this to be the sort of thing that would not be, you know, trade secret or anything.
Right.
Yeah, correct. That will be great.
All right. Someone else still wants to add something on top of this? Okay. Sure, I think we can then move to the next item. So the next item in the agenda is from Mile. Cancel the next meetings. Mile?
Oh yeah, it turns out that if we follow our every other week kind of patterns for the meeting, then the next one is on 23rd of December, just 2 days before Christmas, and the following one is on 6th of January. That happens to be, at least in Finland, I don't know if it's somewhere else in the world too, but a bank holiday. So I was wondering if we should cancel like one maybe at the 23rd of December, or both, or none, like depending on who. If there's enough people, we can just keep both, obviously. Or I don't know if it makes sense to cancel.
Maybe we can.
I'm for canceling December 23rd.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's enough people be missing that one that it'd be useful for canceling. But January 6th, I think we should hold, and if there's no agenda item, then cancel it.
Sure. Is there lots of people that are expected to be on holiday still on the 6th? Well, anyways, you can put we're gonna maybe like Feroz, is it you who just put?
Yes.
Well, anyways, we can put the 2 dates, and then just put a +1 if you want it maintained or cancelled. We'll put the 2 options, and then so just vote there, and then we will modify the invitations for the meetings accordingly.
Yeah. That sounds good. Cool. Thank you. And the next one is also from you, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a heads up that we have the CNCF webinar tomorrow, and there's the link here in case you are interested. Yeah, just with regard for the previous one, I'm trying to edit it, but right now having some issues with the login. But anyways, I just wanted to add like a line for canceling and a line for keeping it, so that people can +1 one or the other, and we can see both. But just having a bit of trouble right now. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Take your time, and I see Kashif is also trying to make the similar. But yeah, just to emphasize on the next item that Mile mentioned, tomorrow we're gonna have this webinar. It's gonna be at, well, the time zone is you will have to convert it to your time zone, but yeah, it's gonna be 1 hour CNC webinar on the Metal Cube. Yeah. All right. Is there some questions or comments for the last 2 items that Mile mentioned?
What's the topic on the webinar? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, sorry. It's just Metal Cube. So we're going to kind of present the Metal Cube to the CNCF. Yeah.
Basically a 101 type of thing, or is it a more deep dive? Or
we tried to be not to go to deep dive, but still try to be a bit more technical, not just a high level. So it's kind of in between.
Let's say it's going to be an introduction, but with a demo and like showing, like basically the this getting started kind of thing. As we have it now as a web page, we translated it into a presentation plus demo.
Yeah. Good. Then the next item is I see a couple of PRs from Nam, I think. Was it a Nam or someone else?
Copy. Sorry, I forgot to put my name there. That's from me.
Yeah, go ahead, Nam.
Yes, thank Feroz. So I would like to discuss about a couple of PRs that add support on TOS the handler for ironic and ironic inspector. So, yeah, but before the discussion, I would like to give a quick introduction about these PRs. So, would you mind if I share my screen?
Sure, go ahead. I'll stop sharing. Yep, you can go now.
Yeah, thanks. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep. Yes. So at the moment, what we have is the our component who want to talk with the ironic API will need to talk using HTTPS, and also the interconnection between ironic API, the ironic conductor is also HTTPS. And the API that I am mentioning is the effort to try to move the TOS, the handler, away from ironic. At the moment, ironic handle the TOS itself, and the PR try to move that handler from ironic to a full capable web server to hopefully with by using a web server to handle the HTTPS, we can boost the performance of this TOS handler. So basically, with the PR, every HTTPS request before if it want to reach RF API, it need to go through the web server first, and this web server will do like uploading of encrypted traffic and then forward the unencrypted traffic to the ironic API. And the interaction here between the web server and the ironic API is made by an inter-process communication channel, like let's say like CGI, because in this case the ironic API run as the WSGI application and run on top of Apache web server. So the inter-process communication here can be some protocol like CGI or some WSGI protocol. And it's also the same with the conductor, but in the case of conductor, we cannot run it as a WSGI application. So the Apache server in this case act as a reverse proxy, and the communication between them is the ATP. So to implement that idea, I put two Apache web server instances to this picture and put them in the same container with the ironic API and ironic conductor. The reason why I put the web server instance with ironic API is because the interaction is the inter-process communication, and so I put them in the same container. I'm not sure if true process in two different container can talk to each other in the same pod in Kubernetes. Also, and in the case of conductor, we also put the web server inside the container of the conductor because the interaction, the communication is the plain HTTP with the encryption. So maybe putting in the same container may be good for security, but also if we run the if we run the ironic inside the Kubernetes inside a pod, so we can separate the server, web server, and the connector into two containers inside one pod. So yes, that is what the PR are doing, and I really want to listen from you how you think about these PRs. And there are a couple of comment and review on my PR. So thank you very much for you who have reviewed those PR. But still, I want to hear more from you. So that's it.
Thank you, Dam. Is there someone that could give some comments or feedbacks for this? I cannot give any comments because I'm not really too much familiar with the ironic setup that we're doing in the.
Yeah, there are a couple of there is a couple of comment from Dimitri. He's not here in this meeting today, but he mentioned that maybe we should not put let's say the web server and the ironic component in the same container.
Well, for the WSGI part, you might have some issues to split it because basically it started by the Apache.
Yeah.
So, but for the other part, the ironic conductor, then yeah, that I agree could be split. This one doesn't rely on having. It's not like so tight as the WSGI approach.
Yeah, and also he suggests that because we already have one Apache server instance, which allow EPA to download image from. So he suggests that we can use this Apache instance Apache server instance for all of these purposes. So you think that that is possible to do that? Or at least how many Apache web server instances we need in this case?
If I may give my personal opinion there, like I think it's quite good approach to bring to consolidate the use of the Apache web server, far less things to maintain.
Okay, so maybe at least 2 instances is recommended.
Well, you could have only one even. That would have the WSGI for Ironic API, but also have the proxy towards Ironic Conductor. So it would be the same Apache that would also serve the EPA images.
In that case, we have to put the Ironic API in the same container with the SWC container.
Yeah.
Where the EPA download the image. So is that a good approach to go?
It would limit our options for scaling, but I don't know how what kind of performance you've seen in terms of provisioning already, and whether we really need to worry about scaling right now.
I think the logic behind that was not as much the scaling part as the SSL implementation in Python that was problematic.
Oh, sorry, no, I meant combining them all into one pod would limit our options for scaling.
Yeah.
I definitely, yeah, we definitely do not want to be using Python to do SSL encryption or whatever. So putting it behind ModWSGI to provide the TLS is definitely the right approach. It's the question of whether we want to support having multiple containers or whether we want to put them all in one container so that we're only running one copy of Apache.
How would it prevent us, like, if we think in terms of scaling, we could still probably like make a certain number of replicas of the pods, and they will, like, it will of course still have only one each pod would have only one web server, but as long as we have the load balancing in front of that web server,
where does the
be...
database live in this design? Is it in the same pod the way it is now?
It should be in those other component.
So the MariaDB database that Ironic uses.
Yeah, and is it run inside a dedicated container?
Okay.
And it could be in a dedicated pod even, maybe.
Sorry, those boxes are labeled container, and I was thinking pod.
Yeah, at the moment, everything, all of this is a single pod.
Right, right.
I don't. Do you have a strong opinion, Doug, then on the sharing an Apache web server per pod, or?
I don't particularly. I don't know how complicated the configuration is, or how much memory having multiple copies of the server actually takes up, and whether that's a real concern. I would lean toward simplifying. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I mean, I guess the other thing I would do is I would lean toward all of this being a suggested way to configure things, or maybe the default way, but supporting people who wanted to run these parts in different pods in order to scale somehow, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
yeah, go ahead. I joined late, but are we suggesting here that that conductor and Ironic API would still be in the same pod, but different containers, and we're discussing whether to share the same Apache, or are we thinking about them being deployed in different pods?
I think the proposal was actually for the first thing, but I was confused and thought it was for the second thing.
Yeah, at the moment, as far as I understood it, there's still no splitting. Like it would still, everything would still be in.
Maybe should we split the API and connector into two pods? So maybe, because at the moment maybe we don't need that kind of scalability, but maybe we may need it. So
there's an issue with the splitting of the into different pods at the moment, at least in the way it's configured as is now, because they are all sharing a folder and relying on that shared folder. And if you're trying to split between the different pods, you will lose this that you had at the moment. That Ironic conductor could just dump files in that folder, and then it was directly used by DNS mask and served over PXE. So this is problematic. And in addition to that, because we can't really use all this kind of services and stuff from Kubernetes due to the PXE server, having multiple pods, different pods, you need to really collocate them so that they can share the IP address, or then you will need to be able to have the DNS mask on one side, well, if you solve the problem of the shared folder, obviously. So you will need to support the different components on different IP addresses. Of course, it's doable, but it's a bit more complex.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for disturbing, but we're running out of time. Maybe you guys can leave the comments in the PR so that Nam can take those and try to address them. Nam, is it okay for you too?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Then.
And okay. Sorry, just considering that there's quite a bit left of the agenda, should we consider an exceptional meeting next week?
Yeah, I see. I see there are a couple of, and we have quite a lot of
Especially
I see
considering the
issues.
Christmas one will be removed.
Yeah, I'm +1 for having one next week.
Me too. Yeah, let's have it next week.
Yeah, that's good. We should have one next week.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
then
if we'll send an updated invite, but still there is a doodle in the comments, so please fill the doodle now, because it's probably like needed quite soon.
Yeah. I can try to send the email also in the mailing list to remind people for filling this doodle ASAP. But yeah, then thank you very much everyone for joining, and we hope to see you next week, Wednesday, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.